How's everybody? Good?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I see we're dwindling down here as it gets close to the semester. But today, here comes somebody else. So like I said last week, today what I'm going to do is show you how to lay out your finals in InDesign or Illustrator, whichever you're more comfortable with, but I'm going to go through the actual compiling your style guide process so that you have that information and that can help you put your final together. So if you have all your pieces or you have some of them, you can actually follow along today and get that started. So that's the tutorial I'm going to do today. I will also be available if you have any technical questions on how to do anything that's still you haven't turned in or that's due. And then after that, it's really, this is it. This is the end of the semester. So I'll be seeing all of your assignments. Next week, I will be traveling, but I will be available at our class time. So I can get on Zoom and help you if anybody has any last minute questions or you're struggling with anything. But this week is typically always a recap day because it's the finals. They used to call them like study days before finals, but our class really doesn't have anything to study for. It's a project. So I will be available next week if you need help. So let me know. Otherwise, this is really like the last official class session. So does anyone have any questions before I go over the tutorial for tonight? You're good? Okay. So check Canvas, make sure you can see the final. That's where you'll be turning it in. I'm going to screen share with everyone here. And so again, InDesign is our layout program. I like to compile all of my pieces in Illustrator and then drop them into InDesign. I think that's easier. It's easier. Sorry, my windows here got a little wonky when I was moving stuff around. I think it's easier to do that. There we go. I always like to see the bottom of my program. But if you prefer Illustrator, you can still save out and use Illustrator as PDFs. So you'll see here I have the beginning of what I would call like the color palette. So I just did it in squares. You get to choose how you think it would look best based on your brand and the style. So every piece of your style guide should convey your brand elements and your feel. So if you're doing something kind of fun, feel free to break out of just the traditional square. What I was going to show you here is if you want to do like a swatch or something different, like these could even be circles if you wanted to do circles, however you want to show your brand color palette. Then you can take that eyedropper, like whatever you decide to make, any shape. And then a couple tips, the align tool is really useful for things like this, so you can make sure it's aligned. And then if you prefer to lay out in Illustrator, you could label this brand. It's double, no, is it? My phone I always autocorrect it when I'm typing it to somebody. But you could label these things too. You can even name your colors. Like if you wanted the colors to have a fun brand name, I see that a lot of times in style guides. So like if the brand uses orange, you would call it like brand orange and like name things that way instead of just using like hexadecimal color codes and things like that. If you want to do something fun, you can use things like the brush tools. And the brush tools are located, let's see, window brushes. And in this brushes palette, it was already open, but I couldn't find it. So sometimes it's easier just to go to the window. You can open up your brush libraries. And I like the artistic ones, charcoal, pencil, have some like cool grunge edges to them. So this is just a line I made with this paintbrush tool, and I went like that. If I grab this line and then I click on these, it'll turn them to these brush strokes. So like, see, that looks pretty cool. So if I had like, say my brand was like a cosmetics brand or an art brand and something like that could look kind of artsy and cool, I could take this and I can grab those colors. Now it looks like this because I grabbed this and this is filled. This is a stroke. So then I would just have to grab this and reverse it over here in my tool. So see, isn't that kind of cool? You can do something like this, or like this, whatever you want to do for your brand color palette. Then I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to make something that roughly represents a logo. So let's pretend this is my logo brand. I'm going to save it in the same folder. And then let's say my brand has secondary visual elements that are something like a group of stars or something. Or any illustration in general, really. Or it can even be photography. Photography assets are on there as well. So I'm just going to save these. Now I just saved all of those as AI files. You could also save them as EPS files or PDF files, but it doesn't matter. It will all drop into InDesign the same. So if I go over to InDesign, now I have my 8.5 by 11 page. Now, if there are things that you want to do on every single page, for example, you want to create like a header or a page number or something like that. So as you're building your brand style guide, you want this particular brand element to go on each page. You can actually double click these up here, and these are the master pages. So if I'm designing and I'm clicked on these up here and the page, this is the page palette. If I'm in here, let me make a line so I can go all the way across if I want to. Then you can even add page numbers if you go to type, let me remember, insert special. So apply page number. Oh, I think I have to do it this way. No, that's not right. I forget how to do this every time. And then what I do is I use it already. I have to remember this. I didn't plan on telling you this. I was just thinking about it as I went along, but you don't even have to number your pages. If anyone wants to know how to do automatic page numbers, I will remember and then I'll tell you, but I'm just going to skip over that. Anyway, my point.
What's the normal size for that, like font size?
So I would say a good default like body copy is 10 point. When you open up InDesign, it usually starts at 12, but like for
Okay.
numbers, you could even go like 8. It depends on who your audience is and how small they can read. You can make page numbers like a cool graphic part of this. Like if you want to do really big page numbers, or I just put a line at the top or bottom. If you want to do something where it's like a bold, like rectangle that's here, and then you put your logo inside, you can do any of that. But whatever you do on these, they're called the parent pages. When I jump back over and click on my first page, it automatically shows up there. See how I did that? So each time I add a page, it'll add what I put on those parent pages to this page. So if there's an element that you want on every page of your style guide, you can put it in these parent pages here. And see if I delete this, now I go back and they're all gone. So one thing I wanted to go over that I learned helping someone after class once is that if you're in InDesign, I personally think it's much easier to lay out and move things in InDesign, because if I decide I want to change one part of my style guide or my logo, I can go edit that one file and it'll automatically populate and bring up the new file. So what I realize is that because you're used to opening, like the phrase open, that you don't go to open when you're trying to put documents in InDesign. You go to what is called place, because you're placing other files in this program. So if you're going to use InDesign and make all of your components in another program and it's something you want to drop in, so as you're getting your photography assets or your mood board or your sketches, make a folder on your computer somewhere that you know where it is. It can be in your documents, it can go on your desktop, wherever you save it, where you know how to get back to it, and put everything in there. And then if you're on a PC or a Mac, I know you can drag and drop. I don't even know if you can drag and drop on a PC, but probably nowadays. I never use a Windows computer, so I'm sorry. But in InDesign, you go to File and you can place it, or you can hit Command D, and then you navigate to that folder, which mine is on my desktop in brand style guide samples. And then I can pick my colors and open, and then I can bring them here and add them. And then maybe I'm not sure which one of these I want yet. And then I decide, oh, I want these cool like swatches. Then I can just adjust that frame. This is another thing about InDesign that I think is really useful and helpful, that if you're new to InDesign can be confusing. So now that a file is placed in this program, it'll be inside a frame, and then there's the file, and then there's the file frame. Those are two different things. When I use my selection arrow and I click on this file, you will see the bounding box around it, and that is to the frame. See how I dragged it and I cut off part of that? That is because I am moving the frame. I am not moving the image file. If I want to adjust this and scale it up and down, I can click on it and use the scale tool to adjust the whole thing. Or I have to grab the direct selection arrow, which is the white arrow, and click. See how the that bounding box is now a different color? That's because I've now grabbed the file, and now I can scale the file up and down because I have the direct selection arrow. The selection arrow grabs the whole frame. See how my frame is outside now because I scaled it down? And the direct selection arrow grabs the actual file that you're manipulating. So they're two different things. And I know during the pop art assignment, a lot of you when placing in InDesign, we're getting really frustrated by not being able to scale like you can in Illustrator. It's because everything is contained in a frame. And when you really start moving things around and dealing with lots of parts, this can become very useful. Just like I said, I have this whole file, but I only want to use this part. Boom, I can do that. I don't have to alter my past file in case I want to save that stuff. And there's a lot of situations where this will come in handy, but it can be really frustrating if you're just trying to scale something and you forget that it's in a frame. So just remember those two things. You're placing the files. You can also just do something where, let me go to my desktop, brand style guide, like if I have my Finder open, and I can drag these in here from my Finder. And then you choose how you want them to go on the page. Give them some hierarchy. Like maybe my brand logo is at the top. This is my brand color palette. These are my secondary visual elements. And you can make text boxes to label everything. And then you can do your brand fonts in InDesign or Illustrator, whatever you're more comfortable with. So maybe this is the headline font and this is the body copy. I have my page numbers on. Just hit remove numbers. And I always like to, when I'm showing the headline font, it should look bigger because it'll be used bigger most of the time. So this would be headline. And then just pick something. Oh, my filter is on. And you can decide which fonts and how many. You might need a subheadline. You might want like a couple other fonts. But again, remember our typography lesson, create a hierarchy, pick fonts that fit the mood and the feel of your brand. And this is essentially your style guide page. And then you'd add your page with the other elements. If I go here. As I mentioned before, each of these things, these numbers on the final can be a page of your PDF. So brand position, where you're going to write about your print options and your digital options. So let's say, for example, you are doing social media. You can actually make an account and you can screenshot those pages and you can drop in those images. Or you can do something where like for YouTube, it's a cover. I think YouTube a square or a round? Most of them have gone to round nowadays, but this would be Facebook as well. And then if it's Instagram, you'd have something where it's the profile. Maybe you have story buttons. And then you could create your actual grid. And you have to do at least 9 samples so we can see what that looks like. So you can bring, you just have to show what things look like is what I'm getting at here. You don't actually have to build things. You have to give me a feeling, a look and feel for your website or your social media pages. So if this was the Instagram account and I just want to design the story buttons and have 9 posts and then a profile picture. And then in my style guide, I would have this saved and label this as my web part of my page. Does that make sense? So if you're doing something, if you're doing it this way, as opposed to screenshotting it and dropping in the actual image, just keep in mind, you need to think about what these things look like when they're in use and have the general spots that those have. Like, I know a couple of you mentioned YouTube. Sorry, I'm opening TikTok. TikTok is the same way. So like this would be an Instagram layout. A TikTok layout would be more like just having this in the middle and then doing 9 posts. And then TikTok always has like the font options where you pick your covers. So you could even mock up like the so say I dropped photos in here to represent like a video. You don't actually have to make the videos, but you could drop in like cover photos to represent that. And then if you wanted to use building off what they do and label, like this would be about whatever you decide. I don't know. It's always, you have to think of those engaging, witty things that gets people to click and watch your videos. You know, if you TikTok, you know these things. I'm not very good at TikTok. But there's like covers to videos. So that what essentially what I'm saying is think about the social media that you're using, how people are going to experience and view it. And then you need to replicate that in your style guide and show what it's going to look like.
I think Melissa has a question.
Oh, okay. I see your hand up. Go for it, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you. For the Instagram post, if we want to add a picture on the little square, how can we do that?
Okay, so if you want to drop in pictures through Illustrator or InDesign, this is where InDesign is, I think, a lot easier to do this. So in Illustrator, if you're dropping a picture in, I'm going to use this photo again. I use it all the time. Haven't cleared it off my desktop yet. So if you want to put, like, say this is your profile photo for your Instagram account, you just make a circle and then you grab both things, make sure the shape that you want this picture to fit into is on the very top, and then you hit Command or Control-7 and it will turn that into a circle. And you could put that in as your profile picture. If you're doing something where it's like the cover stories, a lot of times people like to have like the cover, the story covers and like little buttons that say like, get to know me or shop. And then they'll put links or, you know, just whatever random thing. So if you're making these things, if you are actually making them because you're going to use them, remember that they need to be like the format of a phone. But you could, if you're just making them to show me what your buttons look like, you can just make them in circles. But if you're going to actually use them on Instagram, you have to make them long, upload them into stories, and then add them in there. But you could just mock it up like this. And then same thing I did here with this picture. If I want this not to be in the circle, I just go to Object, Clipping Mask, Release. And now I'll use this as my square. And I did the same thing. I put a square on top and I hit Command-7. And then Option Command, and I just drag it over to replicate it. This is the easiest way to do it. And then you can just do the same thing and then hit Shift so it stays. So I'm putting on the keyboard right now, I have 3 fingers holding down Shift, Option, and Command to keep that straight in line and to copy those. If you would like to just do copy paste, it'll just paste it wherever it goes. And then you can move those in line if you'd like. Now you can do the same exact thing in InDesign using the frames as well. So I would make a circle if I know I want that to be a circle. I've made a circle frame. And let's see.
Are we able to use the templates that you put on Canvas?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because that will make it much easier.
Yeah, there is a template for Instagram in Canvas, but it's a little bit older. So I think it's like an old version of Instagram, which is totally fine. But also like things like I don't have one for YouTube or Facebook or TikTok. So just look at what those layouts are and just mimic those. It's just rectangles and circles, guys. So as long as you know how to make frames and rectangles and circles, you can just mimic the look and feel of that. And you can even mimic the look and feel of a website and lay it out in Photoshop without actually having to make it functional. So you can make frames in InDesign and do the same thing. Make sure it's clicked on and you hit Command D or File Place, and then navigate to where your photo is, and it automatically drops it in. It's going to drop it in full size. So you see there how big, zoomed right in on those teeth, and you have to scale down the image to fit it into the frame. So that's the difference between Illustrator and InDesign. You honestly can use whichever one you want. You can use Canva if you think Canva is more user-friendly. Does anyone know what Canva is and use it?
I do. I made my resume on it, but that's about it.
Yeah, I really struggle with things that other people find easy, like Canva and any kind of Microsoft program, because I know how to use Adobe programs, so I'm used to having all of this control, and I find myself in those programs like nudging things and they like hop over, or like alignment getting out of whack, and I don't know how to fix it. So I get really frustrated and I just use what I know how to use. But the important thing at this point is that you have a good sense of design, you understand color theory, you understand principles and elements of where things can line up and how they look proportional and how they balance on a page. So however you get to your end result at this point is totally fine. But I think dropping stuff, I definitely think dropping things into InDesign and making a PDF is way easier, but you can also use Illustrator if you're just more comfortable in that program. You just have to, like, I'll screen share again here. So remember, in InDesign, everything that you save is being pulled from another source, that folder where you've saved everything. If I'm doing this exact same thing in Illustrator and I'm adding artboard pages, so if I want to do that in Illustrator, I'm adding multiple pages, or I make a page for each thing and combine my PDF later. You can make a multi-page PDF document in Illustrator. You click on Artboard, and then over here in the properties, you just start adding pages. So you'll see Artboard 5. And if I zoom out here, you'll see all of these pages being added. Now, I think this, for me, is just not as easy to replicate things per page. And this file will start to get very, very, very big. So if I have all of these elements, everything exists now within this file. So these are all its own thing. If I drop in the logo, open recent logo, and I have all these basic shapes, nothing's complicated about this, but imagine having like an illustrated logo that has a bunch of parts and things like that. And then I'm dropping in all of my brand photos. Everything's just dropped in here. This one document is going to get very, very large, and it can slow down depending on what kind of computer you're working on. But if you're in InDesign, it's just pulling things from other places. They're not actually existing in this document. So you can even work in fast mode and then preview it and go back and forth. So that's what InDesign is for. It's a layout program, but if you're more comfortable in Illustrator, you can do it in that too. And like I said, if you're comfortable in Canva, I always get it mixed up with our class system. You are allowed to use Canva too. Your end result, how you get there is up to you, but I want to see that you have a good sense of design, that you know how to put a style guide together. Every element of your style guide should go back to your main brand message. So if your brand is fun, this whole thing should feel fun, down to the words that you put on the page to describe your brand voice. If your brand is serious, then you can be serious. I just want everything to be cohesive. I want to see from start to finish that you understand how things fit together. So does anyone have any other questions about putting your final project together in a PDF? Does anyone have any questions? I know last week some of you were still in the concept development phase. So if you're in execution phase and you have questions about how to do anything, I am here for you at this point to show you what to do.
You said you wanted from start to finish. So do you want us to also like share our like rough drafts or stuff like that along the way, or is it just a finalization type of thing?
I love your background, by the way. There is one page on here for concept development. So anything that would be considered concept development, that would be preliminary sketches. It could be initial concepts that you didn't use, or it could just be as simple as a mood board. That's up to you, but you do have to have one page of concept development and show basically where your ideas came from for it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I was working on before this, because I know you said to come to class with something, but I didn't know like I forgot what, and I just remember you telling me like to sketch out that I'm working on like trying to make my thing like public, that way I can add the like design to the website, and that's why I was gonna like just turn in for this as like the like more
If you can even do
Yeah.
a preview mode and just screenshot it and drop it in, that's totally fine too.
okay, that might be easier, because I'm like
nothing-
worried
yeah,
about
don't-
like I never did coding before, so I'm like that's
Yeah.
a whole thing
So
for that class. but that'll
don't
be
get
easier.
overwhelmed with like actually making things real. And that's what I say about anything, down to like if you're having, like if you're doing an envelope, like the shopping envelope we talked about last week. A shipping envelope is literally a rectangle. Show me what the design would look like on a rectangle that's the same proportion as your shipping envelope. If you want to take it that next step and use something like Creative Market and get templates for things like hats or t-shirts and use those Photoshop templates, you're welcome to do that, but nothing has to be functional or real. I just need to see the overall look and feel of your brand in a really cohesive way. And then each element of your final is just consider that one page of the PDF you're turning in. So one page for concept development, one page for your brand style guide, which is the logo, the fonts, the colors, one page for your brand position, which is you're describing your brand voice. You might need 2 pages for your print elements, depending on how big they are and how you want to style them up. So like if you have a resume, just make that a page. And then if you have a business card, that can go on a page. And then if you have a website, that can be the last page. And if you have like the social media, you could do a page for each, just depending on what you want. So just, it's going to be minimum a 5-page document that you're turning in, but you're welcome to use more. How you let things flow. A lot of times too, like a nice cover page is nice. So if you make a cover page for your brand and say brand style guide, and then get into like the pieces of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I overthought it with like the Shelby example. So
yeah, so look at those examples. And then, I mean, some of these are really advanced too. I remember showing you, there's like a good mixed range in there. So all those students are at different skill levels, like find your skill level. And then just, when I grade this, I look at like, I judge it based on your own individual like goals for the semester too. So if you're brand new to this, I'm not going to compare you to the student that I had a year ago that was practically a professional because they've taken design every year since high school. You're going to be compared on your overall work for the semester, but the important thing is it's cohesive. You get a sense of the brand by looking at the style guide from start to finish, and that you get all of those elements checked off. So you're going to lose points if you don't have things, and most students lose the points on this just by not doing one of the things. That's why I give you a checklist. Anybody else have a technical question or need help executing anything?
I have a question, but so I'm trying to make a t-shirt design, and I made one on Procreate, and I'm kind of trying to figure out how I need to export it in order for it not to be blurry when we send it to like a manufacturer. Do you have any insight on that? I'm kind of struggling.
Yeah, so okay, so T-shirt printing is so if you've started on Procreate, first things first, make sure you know what that DPI, that output resolution is.
Yes.
So is it 300 or over?
Yeah.
150? Okay.
Yeah.
So then as long as your size, like if you have it anything in inches,
Mhm.
and you've got the DPI, it should be good. So,
Okay.
but is it going to be screen printed or is it going to be direct to garment printed?
I think it's direct to garment.
Okay, if it's direct to garment, you're good. They can work with a JPEG image or a pixel-based image from Procreate.
Okay.
If you need a screen print, it usually has to be vector-based. A lot of screen printing companies want to print your shirt so bad, they'll be like, that's cool, we'll convert it for you.
Gotcha. Yep. And it won't turn out right.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so if you need to, if it's just a couple of colors, you can do that trick that we did last week,
Mhm.
where you drop it into Illustrator and then have it get auto traced if you need.
Yes.
So that can be really useful. But again, if it's super complicated or something, it may not work that well. But if you're doing garment printing, you should be able to use a JPEG and have it work out pretty well.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you can always make sure that background is turn off your background layer and then export as a PNG, so then you don't have that like square around it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? A lot of times I'm talking to people like, well, your DPI and the PNG and the JPEG, and people are like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's like, I actually understand it now.
Yeah, now you know. And so you also know, like if you end up working with a screen printer or a different printer and they're like, we need it like this, you'd be like, okay, I got it.
Yep. Now I understand the lingo. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so this is really it for today. I'm here to help you all. So if there's anything you need help with, if you even think you maybe want to take a couple of minutes to work, and I'll just stay on in case you need to troubleshoot anything, we can do that as well. Or if you think you're good, that's it. It's final time. It feels crazy that it went by so fast, but it really, it's because this class we have, we don't like come in and take a final or like take a test. So it's just working on this project at this point.
It did go by really fast. I can't believe we're at the end.
Yeah. Has anyone been hit up to make a grad cap for somebody with your new design skills? Because I've been getting asked and I'm like, I do not have time to do this, but it's something I get asked about every year. So I should have told you all like a week or two ago that like your friends, if you have any friends graduating, like hit them up and ask them, like they'll pay you to like design their caps, because it's such a fun thing people do now.
I'm gonna do that this weekend for me. Oh, I'm sorry.
I couldn't see over there who was first.
No, you're good. I was just asking if you had any tips for that, because I'm trying to design mine and I don't know.
So I was asked if I would just paint one, which I totally would, just like get like acrylic paint and like paint on top of it. But if you wanted to like design it on the computer, they make this paper that's really cool. I use it all the time. It's ion transfer paper. You just have to remember to flip your design. So you could like design it on the computer, print it out on an inkjet printer, make sure you flip it, iron it on like a piece of cloth, depending on how they make this for dark colors too, but this one I have is for like white shirts. And then you can iron it and then cut it out and like tuck it around a cap or hot glue it on the edges if you wanted to still have that like fabricy feel. And if you wanted to do it digitally, but then get it onto a cap. So this is a really fun trick for that. Or, you just like paint it, or you can like collage it and cut out like your designs and put it on there. There's a ton of ways to do it. I had a student make some really cool ones before, and I like when they like take their new skills and then they decorate their grad caps. It's really fun. So. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I will stay on here. I'll stay on for a little bit longer. If you feel like you are good, and this is where you have to use your own judgment, because as we get close to turning in that final and you need help, we can make an individual appointment. But if you're struggling with something, yeah, you can, and you can wait and ask questions if you want to set up private calls with me as well. But again, next week I will be available to consult and troubleshoot, but I'm not going to be at this computer to actually pull up and show you stuff, but I can hop on to consult, troubleshoot. You can screen share with me and I can show you things. So you have, looking at a calendar here, we won't count the weekend. We all need a weekend. You have a week. So you have about 7 days, not counting the weekend, to get this final project done. If you have not turned something in yet, you also can still turn in late work. I will accept it at any time. I'm going to start going through the grades of things that we're a little bit behind on grading because some of you haven't turned everything in yet. So I was waiting. But I will start getting your grades finalized as well. So if you have any questions about that over the next few weeks as I start getting those finalized and waiting for your finals, you can always ask me. And yeah, this is your time right now to catch up and to let me know what I can do to help you get through this class. Okay, so if you're good, you're free to go. And if you want to ask me something, stick around. And if you want just a little bit of work time and want me to stick around in case you get stuck, let me know that so that I will wait for you. Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor, I have one question.
Yeah, no problem.
So I've missed a couple like attendance discussions on accident. Is there a way we can make those up, or because I have all my other assignments and I just happen to miss the discussions. I've only missed like 2, I want to say. Or what I should do about that if I could. I've been to every class, I just forget.
Yeah, you have been to every class. Yeah. I will put up one more bonus discussion board for the whole class for this week. Okay. Perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah. I did a bonus discussion board before.
Yes.
And most of you got your attendance made up. At this point, it's like the people who show up, and then there's people that just like disappear after a couple classes and you never know what happens to them. Or sometimes they come back and then, or things come up. But I'll put up one more bonus discussion board if you want extra credit, or if you need to make up an assignment, I'll give you one more discussion board this week. Since this is a pretty easy week anyway. Well, I don't know, your final's probably not easy. So, okay.
Thank you.
You're
we
welcome.
still have class though next week too though, right?
So that's always like the study day. I will be here and I'll be available, but we don't have any official content to go over. It's just if you need help.
Because the due date for the final is, I'm trying to look that up.
Yeah, it's the 16th. So the due date for the final is the day we would have technically had a final, like if we were in person. And like days like today too feel different in person because we're all in a lab and you can actually like sit and work and I can wander around. But like because it's on Zoom, it's like if you want to go, that's fine. And that's why I said if you want to like sit and work on your computer, I'll stay logged on in case you need to pop back up and ask me for help. But it's just a different dynamic than than when we're actually in a lab. Because work days don't quite work the same way. But next week, if you need me, I'll be available, but there's no official topic. It's just an extra help or a study day. And the finals due on the final day according to the final schedule, but nobody has to show up for it. It's you just submit your final by that day. So anyone else who's here have a specific question?
For mine, I was going back and forth with like some different fonts and stuff. And like I like the idea of like wiring and then like using that for the shape of the font and then like the fire based on like what like some of the stuff I was like looking up. But I just don't know like at what point it gets too messy. You know what I mean? So like, should I just send examples over and then like?
Yeah, if you want just input, I'm happy to do that. I would say for a tech-based brand, simple is always better. Tech, yeah, they always lean towards clean, simple, modern.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, but then it's like I wasn't quite sure if like the font choices themselves looked like techy enough, or if it just looked like, because some of them looked. I put my notes. Energy drink brand. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like protein, like, yeah, like, so I was trying to like stay away from that while also like, because some of them are really intricate, which were really, that would have been easy to like flow into another design of like the fire, like how you were talking about. But like my worry was like, oh, sizing, like, especially like, oh, this goes on mobile, which like, that's not really going to be as like easily identifiable.
Yeah. If you also like something like if you just look at like your app buttons, you can see how they'll have something really simple, but then when you start like using it in different ways, I mean, that's normally where tech logos will go on a website, they'll go on an app button, but it's almost just the icon. So as long as you can distill it to like one simple icon, you can have a more complex like logo lockup if you wanted to, if that's where you like to go with it.
Yeah, because I noticed that like for when it comes to like app like features, they're normally just like the first letter or first something of it. So I feel like, because I was thinking about like just mainly making like the fire like around the F part. That way it's like,
that way you have like that F.
I can like minimize it to that if needed.
That's
like still like that same font for the rest of it. But
yeah, that sounds like a smart choice for sure. Okay. It sounds like you're really considering the industry, so I'm sure you'll be fine.
Okay.
But I'm always happy, and this goes for anybody, if you're like, I'm just not sure what looks good or is this the best, and you just want like a consultation on how your project looks, I'm happy to do that at any point.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't put anything, I just like started drawing, so I didn't put anything actually in like InDesign or Illustrator or whatever. So it's like, I don't know if I'm like supposed to just like put that over, but I think I'll just like draw out what I liked out of like my notebook and then like probably send that over. Okay.
So let's see. Ariane, how are you doing?
I'm still trying. I was trying to do, I've been working on the gift still. So I've got like 9 slides going and I built my bee finally. And then I'll throw that into that other program.
Okay.
And then hopefully that one will be done and then I'll start
Perfect. Don't make things harder on yourself than they need to be. Remember that.
It's so watch, I'll show you what I got so far.
Okay.
Hopefully I got the right one. So are you able to see that?
Mm-hmm. Super cute.
So I got that down so far. So it'll go through like it's flying.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm right here on this one where I'm going to make this bigger. And I don't know how to get rid of these little tiny things right here.
Are those extra art boards or are they just
I
square?
think they are.
If you click on, yeah, that art board there, and now you click on it, just hit delete.
Okay, that like that.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what I'm working on. And then once this is done, I'll throw it in the other program and then I'm just going to keep trucking along.
Let me know if you need help along the way. Because
Okay,
there's,
thank you
you
so
know,
much.
one night a week, there's really a lot of time in between class. So if you get stuck at any point, we can always schedule a meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Miguel, did you have any questions?
No, I think I'm good. I just was struggling on the logo, but I think I'm getting close to it.
Okay, well, you had a good idea. I like it. So
Yeah, I'm just gonna work on it more, and
okay,
that should be good.
cool. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.